All right, now just about 70 days left until the midterm elections. Democrats are struggling mightily to get on the same page as we see a socialist insurgency unfold across the country. Deep unhappiness and concern among many establishment Democrats over the hard left lurch. Some are downplaying the battle, insisting there's enough room for everyone.
Well, we're a big tent party.
The Democratic Party is supposed to be a big tent.
I think the Democratic Party has to be a big tent party.
I think if we want to be in the majority, we're going to have to be a big tent party.
It's a big tent.
We do have a big tent.
It's tremendously exciting for all of us, for the big tent of the Democratic Party.
Massachusetts Democrat Congressman Jake Auchincloss is widely viewed as a moderate, but he's rolling out the welcome mat for the far left.
For Democrats to take back the House and Senate and to put checks and balances on this administration, we need to welcome in voters of all stripes who want to make their anger known at the ballot box.
So this is what there is room for, apparently. Here is some of the radical policies that we're looking at from the DSA platform. Replace the president and Supreme Court. Abolish the Senate. Give Washington, D.C. statehood and ICE detention and deportations. Also give amnesty to all illegal immigrants. And of course, there's a lot of free stuff in there. Our power panel now, Todd Ricketts is a former RNC finance chairman. Meghan Hays is a former Biden White House director of message planning. Meghan, just how big is that tent?
I think when people are talking about a big tent, I think they mean broad ideas of Democratic ideas, not the DSA ideas, which are not Democratic values. So I don't want to get too wrapped around the axle on what the Democratic Party means by a big tent. Obviously, nobody believes in getting rid of Congress or defunding the police or abolishing ICE. Those are just not realistic movements that are going to take place in the Democratic Party.
I think, Todd, some might take issue with her saying nobody. There are clearly candidates that are running on that DSA platform.
No, there's no question about it. And I think what we're looking at is that because of the way that Biden left office and kind of dropped out of the scene, I think there's just a void of leadership in the Democrat Party. And so there's kind of this struggle for the hearts and minds of the future of the party. But I mean, if that big tent, if Hakeem Jeffries rolls into speakership on a wave of DSA candidates, that big tent's going to turn into a circus pretty quickly.
I wonder what it says that AOC, many see as a leader, at least in some parts of the party, that she seems to be rolling back some of the things she said about some of these far-left policies. This is podcast host Joe Rogan calling out AOC's recent attempt to downplay backtracking on some of her far-left policy stances. Listen.
You're willing to change your opinions based on public reaction. I don't like that, because if you really thought defund the police and then you just ascribed it to woke one was crazy, well, how did it get you? Because it didn't get me. How did it get you?
Meghan?
Yeah, I don't disagree with what he is saying, but I think you're seeing that across the board. What wins in a primary is not what wins in a general. So if these folks want to win that have these far left ideas, they are going to have to moderate. Their ideas will have to moderate. You're seeing that with AOC moderating. You're seeing that with Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. They're having more centrist views because that is what the electorate of the Democratic Party is made up of. So if they want to win, they are going to have to moderate and have actual Democratic views.
Todd, is that confirmation AOC is one of those candidates just saying what voters want to hear in the moment?
Well, you don't have to dig too deeply into the French Revolution to understand that eventually every revolutionary becomes the establishment, and so then the rhetoric changes once you're empowered. Instead of like trying to rip down walls, you're trying to defend them.
All right, so this is a headline now, Meghan. I'll put this to you from the left-leaning Washington Post. Democratic Socialists' biggest challenge: their own platform. We showed it to you before. Illinois Democrat Congressman Bradley Schneider tells the Post, I don't think the DSA program idea is a moonshot idea. It's a crazy idea. Many of the things in there are just rank, stupid ideas that aren't going to make life better. So my question to you, Meghan, are some of these more moderate Democrats going to be able to reel in some of those far left socialist ideas that seem to be so popular with your party at the moment?
Yeah, I don't think that some of these ideas are popular. I think there's populace in the economics of their ideas that are popular with the majority of people. But I think that is a very much of an anti-incumbency sentiment that's happening. People are not happy with the way the Biden administration handled the economy, and they thought that Trump would lower costs, and he didn't. Costs are actually going up. So I think that is what you are seeing. But some of these ideas, again, not having borders, not having prisons, abolishing, I mean, those are just really dumb and really stupid, and those aren't actually going to win. And let's not forget that there's only going to be about 7 or 8 DSA members in Congress if every single one of them wins in the general in 2026. So we're not talking about a large swath of people here that are going to be in Congress.
Just want to point out, inflation did slow substantially when President Trump did take office. Some of those prices have spiked amid the war. We are also talking about a party that's having a hard time finding who their leadership is and looking for those endorsements. Who will it be? This is one headline that points out that Democrats are shying away from party mainstays. Kamala Harris becomes a campaign trail dilemma, apparently, for Democrats. In key midterm races, many Dems running in red states are saying no thanks when it comes to her support in the form of endorsements or campaign trail appearances. So it seems like a lot of Democrats, Todd, just don't want Kamala on the ticket. So how can she even be a contender?
Well, I don't know if she really is a contender for 28, if that's what you're alluding to. But no, I think it just kind of goes back to what I said earlier, that the way that Joe Biden left office left this void at the top of the Democrat Party. And so there's a struggle within the party for, like, the new leadership and who is going to be the new voice of the Democrat Party.
Meghan?
Yeah, I mean, everyone can say they're a candidate, right? In 2020, I think there was 25 candidates or something that ran for president. So, of course, she can run and people will make their decisions known. But I also think, she is a former vice president and she does have some weight in a lot of political circles. So I don't think it's unreasonable for her to want to endorse candidates and be helpful. But it's also up to candidates if they think it's helpful in their districts. In some districts, it won't be helpful at all for her to be involved.
Just quick follow there. Do you see her as a strong leader, a strong messenger for your party?
I don't think she's not a strong messenger. I just don't think she is the messenger that most people are leading towards. I don't think that I think people see her as part of an establishment that they are revolting against in a lot of ways. So I'm just not sure she is the best messenger at this time.
Got it. Good to have both of you. Todd, Meghan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.